We got that cough out of the way just in time. Good evening and welcome to MOMENTOUS Live, episode 55. I'm Tristan Jucha.
Hello, I'm Tasia Custodi, and below me is...
Hello, I'm Gray Williams, and right over here, nope, there.
Hi, that's me, William Silver.
Good evening, all. It's great to have the gang back together again. The band, the gang, whatever you want to call it. Just in time for the end of the world. Good stuff. We're not talking about hypersonic rockets tonight.
Oh, jeez, too soon.
Because we won't sleep. But we have lots of other fun stuff to talk about. A little bit about current events. Have you experienced any issues with your Apple cloud services in the last couple of days? You're not alone. But maybe you didn't notice at all if you were playing a certain video game for the last couple of days, and I'm not naming names here, but we'll get into that and much, much more. It's great to see all of you again. I'm sorry I missed last week. I broke my streak, my 53 episode streak.
Now you're just like the rest of us.
I'll never be like Tasia.
No.
And Tasia's back too, which is awesome. Tasia, where were you? What did you do? What did we miss?
Well, first I was sick, non-COVID. I feel like we have to always say that now.
Sure. It was just a really bad cold. I've heard that before.
Just really bad though. And
Lasted
then,
about 14 days. And...
yeah, weirdly enough, still a bit sniffly. And then we had our anniversary.
Oh, bless.
So that, as much as I wanted to spend that with you guys, I also wanted to stay married. So it was a bit of a toss-up.
That's fair.
You just don't have your priorities in order. We understand. That's fine.
Exactly. Next year, I'm all yours.
We'll do our best to torpedo your relationship. So if you want to learn more about us at Momentous, you can find us at momentus.tv, facebook.com/momentustv, twitter.com/momentustv, instagram.com/momentous.tv. On YouTube, you can search my name and look for the Momentous playlists there. Let's get right into it, shall we? A little bit of follow-ups, a couple follow-up stories. First, Google Pixel launches live captions for phone calls. Pixel 6 phones now have the option for real-time text-to-speech calls. So now, if I recall correctly, this was a feature that was announced for the most recent version of Android back last year. And rather than try and recapitulate the entire story myself, let's throw to our resident expert of all things Google, Tasia Custodi.
That's me. Yeah, so they announced this a while ago, and it's kind of been like a waiting with anticipation, because not only now can you do real-time captions in phone calls, which is awesome.
So what does that mean exactly before we get too deep into it?
Okay, so from what I understand, the exact use case would be you can tap on the volume buttons, either up or down, either one, and like a live caption option will come up to translate, and then you can select the language, and then captions will come up. So like if you're speaking to a relative in Italy or somewhere and they're speaking in Italian to you, you could just turn that on, and now you're going to have captions of what they're saying but translated to your language.
So not only from your language too, like if both people are speaking English, it'll translate, and that's the most simple case, but you're saying it'll even translate as well, kind of like the Google Translate in person.
Exactly. So this was like a major update we've been waiting for, because I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, like we would, like, for me to talk to relatives in Italy, as an example, I would, talk into my Google Translate app. So I'd fully open a different app. I would talk into it, or I would type something out and I would translate it. Then I would hand the device over to the relative, and then they would read it in their language, go, oh, okay. Then they would reply, and and it would be this back and forth of passing of a physical device. So this is really just another way to like break down communication barriers between the world, essentially. Now you can have these pretty reliable live captions / translate. It's important to kind of say that it's both in this update, because you can also do this with text messages, and it works similar. You could do it message by message, or you could do it like via the whole page, essentially. So like if you wanted to translate everything on one page, if you were like texting with somebody, you could translate with your camera. But even cooler, like if you're watching something on your device, like a video that has captions or something, you just have to hit those volume buttons, and then you could just have somebody like speaking in whatever language you want to speak in, and you'll see it right on your screen, and you'll hear whatever you're hearing. It's really exciting. Like, I just think, oh man, like this isn't that long ago. Like, I'm talking 2017 when we'd passed physical devices back and forth, and like I thought that was cool. Opening a separate app and passing a device and being like, look, we can kind of communicate. And now that literally we could just communicate. I could speak to you in English. You can respond back to me in whatever language you speak, and it will translate to me automatically in English. And then when I speak, it'll translate into your language. It's amazing.
Gray, what's the angle for the deaf and hard of hearing here?
Well, the interesting thing here is you have TTY, which is telecommunications for the deaf, and with TTY, you're basically calling into a service. You're typing on a keyboard, and that's actually being spoken out loud to someone else, and then that person will speak back to the person on TTY, and they will, basically sign that to the person in sign language. With something like this, basically, you're looking at automating a great deal of that process. Right now, the person who is deaf or hard of hearing is typing to a person who is able to sign back. If we have this particular type of service, the interpreter at this point can be replaced by software, which is an interesting thing. We were talking before the show about the cultural implications of this because, ASL is a language, but being deaf, capital D deaf, is cultural. And so there are a lot of folks out there, both interpreters and deaf interpreters, for whom this is automation coming for their livelihood and their culture. I think we're going to see some pushback in that space from folks who do identify as part of this culture. But I think a lot like cochlear implants, which famously in the capital D deaf community, they're looked down upon because they see it as fixing a disability, which they don't believe this is. Then I think there's going to be a bit of a culture clash here. So while I think this is going to unlock a lot of doors for some people, we're at a point here where this unlocking those doors actually may be removing something structural, the foundation of who somebody is. So interesting, but challenging.
Will, how about the Star Trek / Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy angle on this? How close are we getting to the universal translator or Babel fish in our ear, where speaking to Tasia's angle on being able to do this not just for same language real-time transcription of calls, but also from one language to another. What are your thoughts there about are we living in the future? We're almost there.
I think it's pretty cool that it's real time. You guys probably do this as well. Instagram has got really good feature about translating. It still messes up things sometimes. So sometimes constructions seem a bit weird, or people are saying super cool too much. So that's, but for the most part, like I've actually used Instagram in my community. There's people all over the world. So I talked to, previously I talked to people in Russia, in Ukraine, in Italy all the time, in Ireland, where they speak English but don't have the accent. So yeah, all over the world, and it just runs on Google Translate. So, or not Google Translate, but the IG Translate. So I think this is a great feature. But yeah, I guess I bring that up because sometimes I feel like I'm using a universal translator. It's just not 100% perfect.
Yeah, we're getting there. These things are only going to get better.
Yeah. Well, talk about Star Trek just a little bit. Star Trek Discovery just had its season finale, and the season focused. Yeah, so the season focused on encountering new species. Now, typically in Star Trek, we've had seen mostly like humaniform, carbon-based life forms that look like us, usually, right? Mostly 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 eyes, 1 mouth, 2 ears. Kind of, that usually has to do with makeup. With the advent of CG, we've seen something very, very different this season, and a lot of the latter episodes focus on how to communicate with this species, which it's always world-ending events in the new tips of Star Trek.
Yeah.
So there's time ticking, but found it very interesting that we're kind of getting to a point now where looking at these cultural pieces, perhaps context might be something that is interesting. Going back to the deaf community, it was famously my ex-wife and friends used to say that I was a pain in the ass to interpret for because I speak in idioms. Like that's the real bee's knees.
And puns.
Yeah, and it's just like these things don't necessarily translate across spoken languages, let alone across representative language like ASL. The one thing that I did want to bring up about this, though, is this kind of presents a bit of a problematic fragmentation of Android. Because if you're a Samsung customer, if you're a OnePlus customer, you're kind of looking at the Pixel 6 and going, oh, well, what's it got that my phone doesn't have? And basically Google, by restricting it to Pixel devices, they can support it, they can test it, and it probably will be rolled out for Android writ large in the future. But basically, this is Google sort of serving the cake out to everyone, and every once in a while going along and taking the cake back and eating it, so they can get the taste for it, so they can then serve it out to everybody later on. Sort of having your cake and eating it too analogy that didn't really work. See, there's the idiom thing again.
Especially distasteful since Google moved away from the dessert code names for the versions of Android.
Yes.
Exactly.
Way to rub our noses in that cake.
but it does create some second-class citizens inside the Android ecosystem, which is frustrating, I think.
So, Deja, for those upper-class Pixel-using Android citizens, how does one go about getting the live caption feature for phone calls?
So you just have to update your device, and then I would always make sure, like in the settings, that your live translate option is toggled on. It's been busy today, so I haven't tested if it will do that automatically once you've done the update. But always just double check that is what I would say, and then have fun.
So this is for Pixel 6 phones or newer, assuming that they're the ones that have the horsepower to do this in real time, and or encourage people to upgrade. All right. So that was 17 minutes on fall. Yeah, indeed. So that was 17 minutes on, well, we started a couple minutes, like 15 minutes on one follow-up story. Let's see if we can beat that record.
Guys, we're going to only talk about 2 things today.
And they're all going to flow together so wonderfully. Another quick thing. Yes. A couple weeks ago, we covered the Apple Peak Performance event where they had all sorts of fantastic new stuff, including the Mac Studio and the Mac Studio display. And this happened just as the situation in Ukraine was getting real hot. And I had noted at that point that it seems odd that there was no acknowledgement whatsoever, and we could of the situation, offering support, shout out, whatever. Given that Apple, on occasion has selectively done so in the past and has always been, committed to human rights, et cetera, and as such, they have shut down their operations in Russia in support, in protest of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and or to comply with sanctions as well too. That's the other thing that's happening there. But as it turns out, for those who were paying close attention to the Peak Performance event, there was some very subtle signaling going on by Apple CEO Tim Cook, in that he was actually sporting the colors of the Ukraine flag, in that he was wearing a blue shirt and a yellow Apple Watch band. So, coincidence? Or was that a direct?
No.
No. So, Tim knows exactly what he's doing.
All right. Just very subtle.
But I mean, look at it this way, because Apple's done a couple other things, right? They've made Crimea part of Ukraine again in Apple Maps. They're matching donations from employees. Tim's spoken to employees privately with an email, but for Tim himself,
the Taiwan flag back.
I will. It's a matter of degrees here. Sometimes you need to know which fight you're going to win.
Of course.
But for Tim himself, Russia very famously has done things like they have hunted down, homosexual men and women. And so if you are gay in Russia, you can go to jail. You can be beaten. You can be killed. And it seems to be okay with the government. They're in fact promoted by it. And so as a CEO of a company, you are probably doing your best not to let politics interfere with the profitability of shareholders, because that's the nature of, heartless capitalism. But I think Apple, and I think for a lot of Silicon Valley companies, they're probably looking around at their staff, which will most likely have gay members on staff. Well, most likely have people of Ukrainian descent. They'll probably even have Russians on the team who are looking at their own government and going, "This is not what we stand for." The question is, for a government like this, who hacked the election of Ukraine quite reasonably, has been interfering with elections around the world, has launched, what we're calling wars, but really just it feels more like very effective and efficient terrorism. You're probably looking at it going, okay, so how the hell do we hit back in such a way that doesn't make us a target? And so there's certain things that you can do here, and I think Tim, by doing this, Apple needs to kind of rise above some of these things because, again, world markets and just not making yourself a target of medieval autocracy is probably a good thing. But I think also showing people that there is some support, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like that day we were sort of like, well, nothing was really said, and I think probably at some point Tim was like, wasn't there?
Well, if he really wanted to double down, he could have worn 2 Apple Watches and had the Pride band on there.
One cause at a time, please.
Exactly. Let's keep our messaging very clear and clean, shall we? So we're going to get back to Apple in a little bit. So let's wind our way through a few tech issues. I mean, we try to steer clear of politics as much as possible here, but let's focus on some tech issues regarding the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And that's about as political and as I'm interested in getting is calling it an invasion, because we try to adhere to actual reality here, and to call it anything and much else is, denazification. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Nice try. So first off the mark here is Russia officially bans Facebook and Instagram. And however, the Meta-owned WhatsApp remains untouched for now. So I would say the bottom line with that story very quickly is that if you have any contacts in Russia, use the hell out of WhatsApp to get them as much external reporting to them as possible, as people are finding all sorts of channels to do, which we're going to get to a bit more in a moment. And Gray's got some interesting tools to help us sift through some of those tools too. But
can I just interject something
please.
Quickly?
Yeah.
Just quickly, I mentioned this last week, but I have a friend in Moscow who I've lost contact with, and I don't have another way to contact him. So my Ukrainian friends in the community are still posting, and I'm talking to them, but I've lost contact with my Russian friend.
Do you have WhatsApp installed? I ask you seriously.
I don't know how to contact him other than Instagram, so I probably should have thought about that before it went dark.
You might be able to try searching like a username or phone number or something like that.
Yeah, I might start doing that because I'm a little worried about him.
You've got Instagram though still, yeah?
Yeah.
Might be worth posting like get a secondary number through another service and post that number on your Instagram with a message to them, because if they're still able to use a VPN to browse, that may be one way for him to get into contact with you. So
thanks.
So, I mean, this is not an insignificant thing. You've got like 80 million users or so who are blocked from these services. I'm a little surprised that WhatsApp is, given how important it is in the European market, that it still hasn't been blocked by or banned by Russia. But I wouldn't be surprised. It's just a matter of time when we see WhatsApp go down too in the next week or two.
I think they're on a razor's edge here though. Right, because we're already hearing that Russian citizens are not happy with what's going on. And it's like you ban all of these other news sources, and again, there's this "Are we the baddies?" moment.
Wait a sec, are we the bad guys?
Are we the bad guys? Yeah. And so I think for a lot of folks out there, like I imagine the Russian government was probably looking at this and going, "Okay, we take all of this away all at once. You've got nothing to do." The bread lines are growing. Those are the seeds from which revolution sprouts. And so I think, this may be a boil the frog moment, although those frogs were lobotomized in that experiment, so let's not use that one anymore. And to
that point, I mean, not to equate any particular group of people with lobotomized frogs, but there is a certain amount of wish casting that we can be doing toward the population in Russia. But because much of the population, especially the older population, is strictly getting their information from television news, which is tightly controlled by the state. There is, when there are polls being done, there's still a majority actually supports the action in Ukraine, assuming that people are answering honestly, which is another issue there too. But it's a question of, it's one thing for a few thousand people to be protesting in the streets. It's going to be another thing to see hundreds of thousands or millions. I mean, there's only so many people you can put in jail or send to Siberia or what have you, if that's still the way they handle it.
That's what they were also saying. That producer on that news show, that actually blew a lot of people away because a lot of people hadn't seen that kind of thing said.
The one who held up the sign, "No war."
The one that held up the sign.
Has she been heard from since? Like, that's the other.
I think she has a lawyer. She has been in contact, but not directly. The other one that was interesting for me, I don't know if any of you guys saw Arnold Schwarzenegger's sort of appeal video, and I thought that was excellent. And he's very articulate, and I thought there was a deliberate angle there talking to the Russian people, because that's where you're going to Graham's point, like that's where the seeds of revolution are. And so he was sort of stoking that to a certain extent, giving all his connections to Russia, and you're my friends, and I'm not just doing this because you're Russian. I did this last year as well. On January 6th, I just call out tyrants wherever they are. You have a tyrant, so not to get too political, sorry, TJ, but this is what Arnold Schwarzenegger was saying, and I thought he had a really interesting angle just talking to the Russian people.
Well, yeah, and surprise, surprise, the Russian government has come out criticizing that video from Schwarzenegger, so, fake news and all.
We're not the baddies, we swear.
Didn't see that one coming. But Tasha, you'd be glad to know that as some of these services like Instagram and Facebook got shut down, guess what has had second life breathed into it is the part inspiration for this very live stream that we didn't end up using.
Yeah.
Good old Clubhouse. The internet forgot about Clubhouse, but anti-war Russians didn't. So apparently people are using Clubhouse, which, as last time we checked in the last day or so, has not yet been banned. And so that is an opportunity for people to share live audio and hold discussions and bring people on stage to talk about issues. And that is still happening. So that is a little glimmer of hope there. I thought this quote was salient. Anytime there is a wall, information finds little place. I can't even speak. Anytime there's a wall, information finds little places to seep through. Tasia, how happy are you that Clubhouse is finally getting the respect it's due?
I jumped on the Clubhouse bandwagon and then immediately jumped off, and I literally have not opened the app in probably. Has it been around for a year? It's been a year since I have.
About a year and a half now. It's the cool kids first, and then finally we got in, and then we're like, we're not cool enough for this. Yeah. But it's still going. But that's the thing, is like it's such an easy feature to copy. So you've got Twitter Spaces and similar features elsewhere, but being kind of under the radar has kind of helped in this help this population in this particular instance. So
I think it works as long as it's not misinformation. So as long as it's people that are, holding these rooms and actually talking about what's happening, and, instead of like debating it, like I don't want to see like people coming in on the side of Putin being like, oh no, we got to go in because you see all these people, like it's just ridiculous. So like, fair enough. That's the hope, is like, how do they really monitor those rooms in order to make sure like it's not war propaganda, essentially.
So
that was my concern.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. People say, well, the solution to bad speech is more speech, right? So how many people can you have talking in a Clubhouse room at once? Well, the moderators get to control who's on stage, who's not, but there could be competing rooms. But it seems like this is a sort of tool that is perhaps used by more Western-minded folks, and maybe that's an advantage until that door gets closed as well. Speaking of services that are still up for the time being. Wikipedia is the subject of some massive downloading campaigns as people in Russia are rushing to download the entire contents of Wikipedia, which surprisingly is only about 29 gigabytes because it's mostly text. But there's a fear that it will get banned, and so that people will not have access to Wikipedia such as it is. And people criticize Wikipedia because it can be edited by virtually anyone. Certain sensitive topics can only be edited by logged in users. Studies were done years ago comparing Wikipedia to Encyclopedia Britannica and finding that, for any given article, Wikipedia might have 4 errors in it, but the Encyclopedia Britannica might have 3 errors in it. So they're kind of in the same ballpark, the difference being that Wikipedia can be corrected much more quickly. So Gray, can you just give us a quick update on how you might do this, and what, for those who don't know what a torrent is, how people are actually downloading the entire contents of Wikipedia.
For sure, yeah. So torrents are peer-to-peer file transfer, and essentially what that means is a torrent file is almost a way of indexing access points to other users on the network. It's this protocol called BitTorrent that basically, as soon as you enter into the stream, you're downloading bits as they become available from other people. So you're not downloading the file in a linear fashion where you start at byte 0 and end at byte wherever it is. You're grabbing pieces of the file as they come by you in the network. The thing about BitTorrent is you can also seed the file as well, so you become part of that network within the give and the take. I used to use this many years ago as part of Future Shop because it had the largest HD network in Canada, bigger than any broadcast network at the time. This was back in 2008, 2009, because all of the HD TVs in the stores were able to play material that we would send to them. And so there was a company in Kitchener, Ontario that was creating the media, and then that was basically being sent out across BitTorrent to all of these stores into seed boxes in the stores. And each store would then help seed the others. It was a really great way of basically reducing the amount of bandwidth cost and the time that it would take to get things from point A to point B. So BitTorrent is a really handy way of doing this because the more people that are seeding the file, the faster it basically gets around the world. It's how movies are shared when they're pirated, that sort of thing. With Wikipedia, there's actually quite a few different ways of doing this. Downloading a torrent of this is one way to do it. You can actually make a backup of it on your own. And so I've just been getting into open source hardware recently. I'm digitally going to a conference in April about it. And so OpenMoko was a company that released an open source cell phone back in 2008, and they created WikiReader. And this is essentially a .zip file, which can be read by a number of different e-readers. You can also build your own touchscreen, purpose-built open source hardware piece for this. You can maybe get a link in the show notes for this. But you can basically buy all of the pieces, put it together, and then download WikiReader, and it will actually update regularly as well. So it's a really neat way of going about it. We've seen some stuff like this in the past. There are tablets that have been engraved and erected around the world, who knows by whom, that are basically like instructions on how to rebuild society after we nuke it all with hypersonic missiles. Said we were going to talk about that. But this is actually one of these ways where the reason I started getting into this is because of emergency preparedness here in BC. Things like earthquakes, wildfires, the possibility that you might be cut off from the internet for some time is concerning. And so having that information available is something I think to be valuable and pretty cool. So this right now, for folks who are in Russia or in Ukraine who are being cut off because of various things, this is a great way for them to have this access. It's kind of like one of the tactics in the Blitzkrieg style that I think the Russians were trying for in the invasion and didn't really get, is that you get in, you cut off the power, and you cut off communications. They weren't able to do either of those things. So I think for a lot of folks, if they had been preparing like this, they were a little overprepared. But I think, overprepared is probably the better side of the equation to be on in this sort of case.
And speaking of maintaining internet access, I just heard in something I was listening to today that story that we talked about a few weeks ago with Elon Musk sending a whole bunch of Starlink receivers over, about 400 or 500 of them at least to start. Apparently, they have been working very well in helping to keep individuals and the forces connected in Ukraine. So. Gotta love it. It's a decentralized nature, and so this is a classic example of decentralization with BitTorrent, a peer-to-peer protocol whereby it's hard to stamp out any one source of the information because the information is spreading itself everywhere. Apparently, one of the fears about Wikipedia's being cut off from the Russian population has to do with a particular article on the quote unquote Russian invasion of Ukraine 2022, because you have to distinguish it from perhaps other past invasions.
Yes.
And the Kremlin basically wanted Wikipedia to edit the article to its liking, and in not quite these words, Wikipedia basically told them to go F themselves. So here's the article here in Russian. You can run it through Google Translate if you want an English version of that, or any other language for that matter. But so that is nice to see that there's certain information sources which are holding firm, and then other ways to keep those sources available even if they get blocked. Because ultimately, it seems like what Russia is trying to do is build its own great firewall, like the one China has.
Yeah,
which is not.
I believe what they said was actually go fdisk yourself, which is just go repair your file structure, because clearly there is a command issue.
Delete your account. Oh, you gotta love command line jokes, folks. So let's get into, we mentioned certain tools one could use for communication. And there are, we talked about WhatsApp, for example. Now we need to be careful that whatever tools we decide to use to try to circumvent tools that have been blocked, that we want to make sure these tools aren't being co-opted by malevolent agents, foreign actors, and the like. And so as such, there is a tool called SpyBuster, which Gray is going to tell us about right now.
So this is a really great tool, because what it's doing is it's taking a look at the bundle that comes with the software, and it's analyzing it for a couple of things. It's looking for .ru domains, which is still one of the biggest domains in the world, was knocked offline last week by Anonymous. And it's interesting, is like mail.ru is probably got some of the most traffic on the planet, because pretty much everybody in Russia is using it. And so it's looking for those things. It's also looking for connections to IP addresses of servers back in Russia as well. It's interesting, because if you take a look at the page that SpyBuster is on, there is a window there that shows the SpyBuster software by MacPaw, and it shows a couple of apps. VK Messenger, Telegram, VK Teams. So VK is basically like the Russian Facebook. Yeah. So I came across this. God, it's got to be about, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, because some friends that I had here had said that they were finding, because I don't want to say like part of a marginalized community, but part of a more esoteric community, and basically had found a friend group there. Over the course of about 1.5 years, I noticed something starting to happen with them, which is their viewpoints started to reflect things that we would hear from Russian commentators, from people who, quite reasonably have been mouthpieces for Russian media here, to the point where I actually lost these friends. I started to hear things, and we would challenge them on it. Well, I heard on VK, which is basically the Russian equivalent of I heard it on Facebook. And so, I've since that moment, I've always kind of looked at it like, this thing's kind of cancerous. It's kind of, I feel like there's some influence here. And so, about 1 year ago, I started looking into the types of things that make it onto VK. And yeah, it's very much, it almost feels like a propagandist tool. They basically looked at the power that Facebook had and said, it's great that we can manipulate, the Western world using their tool, but we've got to make sure that can't happen to us. So we're going to own this and use it. And that's really what it feels like. Can't say for certain that's the case, but it definitely feels like there's a through point on that one. So all of these things, it's basically analyzing the software, and then it's analyzing through dynamic analysis IP address connections. And so when you're looking at this, any unencrypted data that passed through an internet node can be basically sifted and looked at. Any encrypted data, it takes a whole lot more work to do. So you can protect yourself in a couple of different ways. You can ensure that if you're using messaging apps, you're using messaging apps, not Telegram, which is massive in the cryptocurrency community. It's one of those things where, I set up, again, a disposable number, basically almost using a sandbox with Telegram, because that one feels hinky to me. But you can basically
on the Telegram thing. I mean, Pavel Durov is the main guy behind it, and from what I understand, that he is a Russian entrepreneur, and I'm not sure if he's a billionaire. At least he was. But that one of the things with him is that he has been an outspoken critic of Putin. So do you not feel that Telegram is in good hands under his under
Any messaging app that is closed source,
Mhm.
I have no time for.
All right.
And so, I mean, iMessage, the vast majority of the stack is open source through Apple. We take a look at Signal. That's my messaging app of choice. Telegram, WhatsApp, anything that you cannot actually take a look at the code at,
Mhm.
I won't trust for messaging. And so, I mean, that's why I asked Will, do you have WhatsApp installed? I've had to basically set it up again with a different number because people in my building are using it for building chat. But in the last year, I've actually set up Mighty Networks for us to use to chat, and I've switched over to Signal. So I've got one holdout, and towards the last Strata meeting where we're saying we're done, and I can get that out of my life completely. Telegram, like I said, don't trust as far as I can throw it. You might be outspoken, but anything that's within Russ's walls right now, anything that's behind that digital iron curtain. Especially closed source messenger, not keen on. So this is a really great tool. I was running it today, and here's the thing. There's a couple of pieces of software that I have used in the past, like Luminar, who basically have decided to move their servers out of Russia because they're losing business for one, but also I think they don't want to be seen as associated with what's going on. So they're moving.
Yeah, I also have Signal, by the way.
Oh well, if you do get in contact with your friend, get them on Signal.
Signal is the way.
And that's the thing, like messaging, teach this in our social media classes. Like, don't build your house on rented land. I heard this from you, Tristan, right? Don't build your house on rented land. If you're building you're following your contact list anywhere that you don't have control of, it can be taken away from you at any time. And so social messaging apps that go through a social service, that to me, things get shut off. Right. So it's like build your contact list, bring it back to something that you own.
Tejo, what sort of, are there any sort of alternative apps that you use for talking to certain folks? Like, I know that I have WeChat, because I like to be monitored by the Chinese Communist Party. But I had a couple friends there. Have a Line, which is popular in Japan and other parts of East Asia, because I have one or two friends on those. Any other sort of non-mainstream apps that you use to communicate with everyone, or are you pretty basic?
I still have Voxer.
Oh, why don't you explain what that is for those who might not be familiar, including myself?
So it was like old school from years ago walkie-talkie app. So you could just like walkie-talkie with friends. And actually, wildly enough, I was gonna delete it this year because I was like, man, I never use this app anymore. This is crazy. Because before, I have some friends that are on Android, and before they got WhatsApp, that's just how we communicated. Because I'm an iPhoner, they're Androids, and and then when they got WhatsApp, we just moved over to WhatsApp. So I was going to delete it, and then one of my clients actually uses it for like team communication. So I was like, well, I'm glad I didn't delete it. So like I just kept the app, and they were like, is this you? Because the profile picture I have, it's like,
oh no,
so old. It's from like 2008, and I was like, yeah, that's me. So that's all. But that's, a North American, like, I don't use anything crazy.
Voxer. Good
like
stuff. Well, so let's move over, just shuffling things a little bit here, talking about services as centralized and decentralized. Well, some pretty centralized services went down over the last day or two. And so some of you who are in the Apple ecosystem, including myself, may have noticed some hiccups with your services. For example, and this affected me, I didn't know what was going on. I went to do a monthly Costco run yesterday, and well, actually, I was going for Costco run and to get new tires on the 2016 Kia Soul EV that we picked up. Got some, and we'll talk about that another time about those tires because they're very nice. And of course, I screwed up on the time. The appointment was actually today. So anyway, So anyhow, I was at Costco yesterday, and my wife Stephanie and I have a shared note as a shopping list, and we check and uncheck things when we need them and when we pick them up. And there's a Costco section there. And so I picked up what had been unchecked and got that home. And then when I got home yesterday, Stephanie's like, oh, did you get this? Did you get this? Did you get this? I'm like, no. It's like, those weren't unchecked on the list. She said, well, I did it. And it's like, okay, put up your dukes. Who's right? Who's wrong here? And as it turns out, we were both right, because it was Apple that was wrong at the end of the day, because iCloud went down. And it wasn't just services like syncing your iCloud notes, but any sort of things like including your iCloud mail. So if you have a me.com and iCloud.com, Apple Music, the App Store, Find My iPhone, Apple Maps, Apple Store, and more. Apple Arcade, all sorts of stuff there. And so things were going up and down throughout the day yesterday. And if you are ever having sort of weird little glitches like that, especially with online services, there's a great website you can go to called downdetector.com, and we'll include that in the show notes as well. There's other ones called like, is it, I think, if you just type in, is this down for me, or is it or for everyone, or just for me? But down detector.
Down for everyone or just for me is the, yeah.
Exactly. And then, so today, apparently there were some additional glitches as well. Today was mostly just Apple Music and the App Store, which were misbehaving. So, these are, I imagine, running on different, in different data centers, different server clusters and the like. But things seem to have been settling down now. We can see in the last 24 hours, this is, I assume it's Eastern time. So probably about midday today, Pacific time, where we had today's issues. Will, did you experience any glitches with your Apple devices in the last day or two? Anything you noticed?
Not really. I mean, I've had a couple weird things overall, just with things not syncing, but
But that's just usually hackers like interfering with your account. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I feel like this has been happening for a week or so. I don't know if it's any of that, or I've updated some of the software recently. If that has something to do with it, I often expect some of that when some of these things happen.
Yeah, sometimes there's a recalibration of certain services or even things like Spotlight reindexing your device, whether it's your Mac or your iPhone or your iPad, which can nuke your battery life and make things warm, and certain things don't work so well. So you've had a little bit on and off. How about you, Tasia?
No issues, but I haven't really been in that ecosystem lately.
Gotcha, because you're straddling the Google and Apple ecosystems, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Gray, how about you? Didn't notice anything?
I was playing video games all day, so I really nothing.
Right.
Destiny 2 was not affected. One thing that should be kind of noted here, though, is that they're saying that the outage here was caused by domain name servers, right? The Internet Address Book. You type in a domain name, it goes and finds the IP address that's that is representative of, and then it connects the two. And the problem there, though, is that the domain name server lists are semi-centralized, right? Like, it's going out to the domain name server that is usually declared by the server that you connect to the internet with. Google DNS was 8.8.8.8 and then 8.8.4.4. If you set that up in your browser or in your router, it'll use those particular servers. OpenDNS has their own servers as well. I've been kicking money to them for years. But there's actually a bit of a move afoot right now to create decentralized Web3 domain names. And the thing about this is they're minting them as NFTs.
Of course they are.
Of course they are. So I own Gray.ust, which is part of the Terra network, but it's a decentralized domain that's on the blockchain, which means that anywhere that the blockchain is where it is. So it can be as close as your computer, and when you're synchronized, then it is up to date. And there's a group called Unstoppable Domains that will sell you a domain for $5 that never has a renewal fee, which for those of us who I think I rack up probably, I want to say, high three figures in domain name addresses every year. I think Tristan, we've probably both done, maybe you guys have, we've done the domain name clean of like, well, that was a great idea that I never developed into something.
May I introduce you to beatmybaby.com?
You can't.
I remember that. I remember that. Do you still have that?
No, I let it go. It was like a hot or not, but for babies.
That's okay. I was going to say that's a Mary Poppins sequel that I don't want to see.
When was that? Was that like 2006 or something?
Yeah, late 2000. 2009 maybe. It was like...
Oh man.
I had one, which I still might do, which was tapshaming.com. It was actually more relevant before COVID because there were a bunch of places around town that have the pause pads but wouldn't let you tap. They do in the downtown east side, because if you get the debit cards on the downtown east side and they tap, your $50 is gone. That's the limit, and it's $50 is gone.
Yeah.
But I actually printed up stickers. I was going to go put them around on the windows of places that didn't take tap, and find out why I'm on tapshaming.com and have a QR code with their address, and so you could and then would automate sending a message to the anyway. It's getting down a rabbit hole here, but these unstoppable domains are kind of a thing which we're reliant on these domain name servers for these services to function, and when they do go down, you don't get your shopping list, right? Among other things. And so, Find My iPhone was offline. For some folks, that was probably a gut wrenching moment. My phone's gone, and literally the internet to find it is also gone.
Where'd the internet
It's
go?
a very bad Sunday. So,
and we saw a few months ago how important the DNS services are. Sorry, I guess that's like saying PIN number. How important DNS is to the operation of websites large and small, because certain corporations have internal DNS, and Facebook, all of their services went offline a number of months ago because they were having DNS issues too. So I guess the question simply remains, what caused the DNS issues that brought Apple down? And was it due to Tim Cook wearing a blue shirt and a yellow, Apple Watch pad?
There it is.
We'll never know. Well, we'll have to go to the some conspiracy-related social networks and find out.
DK's got an article on it. It's great.
Yeah, perfect. I know. I'll just tune into RT. So we've got some a new iOS version 15.4, which dropped on us. And there's an article from the Next Web where they ranked the new iOS 15.4 features from best to worst. Some highlights in there: Apple Card widget, EU vaccination cards that you can add to Apple Wallet, maybe coming soon to North America someday. Who knows? I'm not hopeful, because I know that we don't even have contact tracing on the BC in British Columbia. For the British BC government never got on board.
Funny.
AirTags displaying anti-stalking alerts, tap to pay on iPhone, a more gender-neutral Siri voice, and of course the enhanced version of Face ID wearing while you're wearing a mask, which is great for people who do not have an Apple Watch, because if you have an Apple Watch, I believe it was maybe a year ago or so that Apple introduced a feature whereby you could, if your Apple Watch was unlocked and you went to do something, you went to unlock your iPhone using Face ID, and it couldn't because you had a mask on, with the fact that your Apple Watch was on and unlocked previously, either by the code on the watch or having unlocked your phone, that it would aid in the unlocking of your phone for you. And it works almost flawlessly. So it's bringing that level of convenience with some security, maybe not quite as much, but whenever you degrade things like getting only half a face versus a whole face, it's going to be somewhat degraded security, but it is definitely a lot more convenient, especially where a lot of people are still wearing masks. So for those of you who have an Apple Watch, and had that feature activated, not an issue, but those who don't, will maybe go for it. And Tasia, those of you who maybe didn't activate it at all,
yeah, but I want to asterisk this, because this is kind of like false advertising on Apple's part, because it's only available on the 12 and up. So losers like me who don't have a newer iPhone, because apparently the 11 Pro is just so old.
But losers like you have an Apple Watch, so you don't even need this feature. If only you knew something. If you were like in the tech world.
I wish I was could figure it out. I don't know.
If only, what you should do? You should start a YouTube channel and give people top tips.
Yeah.
Maybe I should make a video on it.
There we go. Calling Apple out with an asterisk.
Don't have a new iPhone because
there you go.
You're not somebody who buys one every damn year.
We're waiting for our commissions on that one. So there you go. There's a handful. Any of these features mean anything to anyone before we move on?
Universal control.
Yes, that's another thing that was not mentioned in this article. Quick and dirty on universal control, because that requires you to have the latest version of Mac OS as well on your Mac.
These guys here, MacBook here, iPad here with keyboard and mouse that I could use, but I can keep my hands on this and go from the iPad OS to the Mac OS and drag things back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
It's the magic I was hoping for. Like, this is great. Sidecar is great. And you can actually use Sidecar and Universal Control together. So Sidecar lets you use your iPad as an external screen, right? And you can set the layout up so that it makes logical sense. So I've literally got my MacBook screen up here, my monitor here, the iPad right below it. And that's awesome. So basically, it turns the iPad into a glorified monitor. But when I'm doing that, I kind of lose the ability to use the iPad seamlessly. Whereas with Universal Control, I can still have the iPad doing things and controlling things. So I can actually be, sending photos, processing video, whatever it is that I want to do with it. And I can use the computer to do the computer things. But copying files back and forth has never, like, even AirDrop isn't this easy. And I am so incredibly thrilled with how well it works. It's just, a lot of Apple stuff feels like magic. This feels like magic. I feel like it should have come from a one with a one from Ollivanders, because it's that friggin' cool. That's my 15.4 review.
Nice. And for those who maybe are Universal Control is a little maybe a bridge too far, iOS 15.4 also has a ton of new emoji. So there you go. Something for everyone.
Emojis.
Exactly.
I like my emojis. My parents started using emojis.
I love emojis.
But, honestly, like, getting them to text took years. Getting them to use emojis, they did it on their own.
I love the emojis.
I'm so proud of them.
On my team Slack at work, because there's like dumpster fire and this is fine dog and yeah.
So if emojis aren't good enough for you, well, there's always animated GIFs which you can send from within iMessage and a host of other messaging apps as well. And I'm a big fan. It's like another whole language, finding the appropriate animated GIF response. Well, now Twitter is letting us create our own animated GIFs very easily using our iOS camera right in the Twitter app. Tej, you want to give us a quick rundown on that, and I'll pull up a special animated GIF that you made.
Yes, so right now in the app itself, so you don't have to go to Giphy, you don't have to do anything in Google Photos and like take a bunch of photos and then stitch them all, so have Google stitch them together for you. Just right natively in the Twitter app, you can just open the camera and then you can hold the little button down, make your little GIF, and then it will automatically create it for you and you can tweet it out for all the world to see. It's fun, actually.
And
there's nice sweet girl. She was so mad at me, you guys. I won't tell you on air why. It's a private story. She'd be embarrassed. But she was pissed. So I was like, this is going up as my first ever Twitter GIF. The side eye from the dog.
So good.
So check out Tasia at twitter.com/Tasia Custodi to see exactly what she's talking about here. Her dog Poppy giving her the side eye. And so I guess they've got options there for looping or doing kind of like a boomerang type feature where it just goes back and forth, because that is very nicely done there. What kind of editing tools are in that? Is it just super basic? Or?
Yeah, there was essentially like nothing. It looks like it looks like your camera. But what's interesting is it actually opened me up directly into the GIF option. So like, you know how normally you would scroll either left or right to like move from, photo, video, whatever. So it was right in that option already. I know, it's like they are promoting it and they want you to use it. And I found it best to hold the shutter button down rather than like tapping, because like there is a bit of a glitch a bit. So like I think you're supposed to just be able to tap and like do your thing, but for some reason I think it like starts a hair after you tap. So I think there's like a bit of kinks. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I didn't really notice any editing tools. Yeah, it was pretty basic, but it's cute. I mean, then you don't have to like go into all these third-party apps. It like goes back to the Clubhouse thing we were talking about. Like, it's wild that I haven't been in the app in probably a year yet. Sometimes randomly I'll catch like a Twitter space, and like I never thought I would, because I was like, oh, Twitter's just copying Clubhouse. But like, if I'm already around, I'm in the app and something's going on, I'm like, oh, what are these people chatting about? It's like, so to keep people in one app, I'm always a fan of that. But I'm a Twitter person, so.
Yeah. And I hope
tweeting into the void.
I'm there for it.
Yeah. Yeah, we got notifications turned on for you, Tasia, when we see your stuff. So I tried this
That
out too,
makes
but I
fun of
didn't want to
you.
actually tweet it out because so I can't wait until Apple or other first party messaging apps integrate this sort of
Yes.
tech.
Yes.
Because I'd
So-
love to be able to do this kind of thing for just sending text messages to
Yes, because it's like would be the next iteration of when they finally gave us like Giphy in the keyboard search.
Mhm.
And so that's besides like emojis, that's literally how I communicate with people is via GIFs. So how much more fun would it be to
Right.
just make your own on the fly like that?
And not have to be an emoji.
So
So if you're making, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say there's a really cool feature to this as well, which is you don't have to shoot it as a GIF. If you've got an iPhone, you shoot live photos, you can go in and select it, and there's just the little GIF
Beautiful.
option there. So
Love it.
here's the thing: it's actually like it's way easier, and the GIFs are better quality than a lot of the GIF shortcuts that are out there right now. So I set up a Twitter account that is private so that I can save the GIFs after the fact, because you can't save them without posting them. So I'm
Okay.
posting it literally into the void
Mhm.
and then saving the image as after.
Yes.
Good stuff.
That's cute. I like that idea.
It's a lot of GIFs of Stormy, like a lot of GIFs of Stormy. So,
Oh,
Now Will's interested. Get some cat gifts in there.
so
I
was his
send cat
birthday.
gifts all the time.
was his
happy
birthday last
birthday.
He's 10.
Wow.
Oh, bless.
But doesn't look a day over 9 because we use some really great apps to keep him looking young.
Yes.
Segue.
Oh,
Filters.
well done. So if you're going to be making gifts of yourself, you want to make sure you look your best, and why not have some artificial intelligence help you out? And as such, Clinique, the skincare brand and beauty purveyor of beauty products, is ramping up development of AI skin analysis. Now, Tasia, this is not entirely dissimilar from a feature that we were talking about last year that was in I believe, one of the latest version of Android. Can you start with that and then segue us into what Clinique is doing here and how it might be a little different?
Well, are you talking about the True Tone?
Well, there was there was that, and then there was also being able to spot potential things like.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like based in the health component of and asterisk. This was not to replace doctor advice.
Of course.
But essentially, it wasn't just face related, but any type of skin ailment or something, you could like take a photo and then have that run through the Google gods essentially and figure out closely, maybe asterisk, what the condition is. So this is kind of similar in that I think this is like really, really more lowbrow. And honestly, this is just like a marketing play from Clinique, but it's basically like they're doing their like advanced hydration, I think is what they call it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right now is like the only thing they're really doing with that. And it'll look for, like redness in your skin or dryness in your skin and stuff like that. All just with you holding up your phone and using the camera. So you don't have to physically go in anywhere and have people near your face, because we will never live like that again.
Thanks, COVID.
So I would say I like it, except like here's the difference for me. One thing was very much like an advance in technology in order to potentially be helpful to people. And again, in my argument of breaking down barriers for people that maybe can't get to the doctor, whether it's they're too far away, they don't have money to do it, they're just too scared to go, or whatever it might be. And this is just more so like a marketing ploy, like check out our cool new feature and then come on into the Clinique store and buy whatever, you know what I mean? So like, it's just like this, we have the exact Clinique product to solve your dry skin. I don't know.
Oh,
Like-
yeah, create the demand and then solve the problem, right? So the new hydration analysis looks at microtextures, skin surface topography, and redness to identify dryness. Based on the results from the scan, the brand then offers personalized product recommendations for the consumer on its site. And the best part here, Tasia, is that their past initiatives started in 2019 have resulted in increasing conversions by 2.5 times with a 30% larger basket size. And I think that's something we can all get behind.
That is really God's work.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm actually willing to put this to the test because, like, Clinique's not the only skincare brand out there, and there are lots of places that you can go that will give you an analysis like this in person, right? There's Sephora, there's MAC, all that sort of stuff.
What is this in person you speak of?
It's the place where we go and examine each other's masks. So I will take this challenge. I'm going to download this app and see what it tells me, and I will actually go around to a couple places and see if I get the same sort of input from the folks behind the desk. I'm curious to know.
I want you to report back.
I will, and I'll let you know if my basket is 30% larger than I thought it would be.
You should probably see a doctor about that too.
See a doctor.
So Gray is now our official Momentous skincare correspondent. We're looking forward to your report.
All right, might as well be, right?
So if your hydration just is not on point, you're suffering too much dryness and redness, and you just do not want to show your face on Zoom, well, Zoom has just a solution for you. New animal avatars are like kind of like Apple's Emoji, but for meetings. So we've ruined Facebook. Now we can ruin Zoom as well.
Creepy.
Everyone loves that for your corporate meetings, but even corporate types need time off, and so if they're part-time furries, maybe this is the next best thing. Comments?
What is happening?
There's something.
There's no way you can have a serious meeting when someone's got a cow head.
Well, what's that one where the person was like a cat filter? It's like, I am not a cat.
Yeah. That was actually an old Lenovo laptop, I think. Or was it a Dell or a Lenovo that came with a custom piece of webcam software that basically they had to like track down this piece of essentially bloatware that came on a very specific set of laptops to realize that that's what this guy had. Mm-hmm. How it got turned on, nobody knows, except for the fact that he's probably, again, a part-time furry, which nothing is wrong with.
Here's what they need to do. Enough with this nonsense. And then these stupid bylines about, for when you don't want to show your face. No. You need to get on the bandwagon of like, so I want to be a cow? No.
Yeah.
What you want to do is give me...
Go to Clinique is what you want to do.
Go to Clinique. Give me a realistic filter. Like, you know how
that cow has dry skin, man.
Yeah.
A little level conditioner would go a long way. I'm
serious, though. Like, give me a... Like, I want to look snatched. You know what I mean? Without having actual any makeup on. I didn't get ready and, like,
But how big is that cow's basket? That's what I want to know.
Well, the thing is, there's the skin tone thing in Zoom, and like I'm using right now, which it does have a beautifier in there, and like you can change the skin tone and
paying for it now. I don't see a watermark anymore. Oh,
there's the watermark.
Here's the ring. There it is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I found it so incredibly helpful, mostly for presentations, for like teaching and whatnot, because you can put the slides in there and you can actually get inside the slides, and it's great. But I joined the Insider community last week. I made a post about how much I was enjoying it, and I got a note from them, and they're wonderful. So
is that called hum?
No, but also it was bad. Well, here's the thing. I don't think we talked about it, but actually launched like a web version of their tool called Ooh, because reasons. But it's actually like, but we could do what we're doing right now in Restream, where we're all kind of existing inside there. And instead of being in our own windows, we just kind of are existing all in the same space together. It's like, 0.5 metaverse-ish. But I was trying it out last week, and from the beta to where it is now, or the alpha where it is now, it's come a long way.
If this keeps up, I think we're just all going to go back to using Yo.
Oh, wow. That goes back a long way. You were the only person I ever yo'd with. That came out wrong.
I yo'd with Tim, our friend of the show, Tim.
Tasha, right? were you ever on board Yo? Where it's like that app had a single purpose. You talked to a person, all it did was go, Yo. That's all you could do.
Before my time.
Honestly, though, like, and here's the thing.
Back in the 30s.
We're all running around on stone wheels on our cars.
You got our news from the street urchin yelling out, Wuxtree, Wuxtree.
Here's the thing, though. Yo actually has a place today, and it's on the Apple Watch, right? Like, just a button that you hit that goes, Yo, and it's like, oh, that person needs something. Dude, right? But, like, setting up a text like this, Yo.
Okay, we got our homework in. Got our homework. Yep. All right, so going from ruining video conferencing with fake Emojis, let's ruin peaceful truck rides with bringing video conferencing into our Ford F-150 Lightning. Ford, it was going so well, but you decided to partner with Cisco now And we don't see why people wouldn't be using the vehicles as a fantastic quality office to be able to collaborate together. So basically, they're going to unlock the browser experience on Sync 4A, which I guess is Microsoft's latest version of Sync, which is the Ford's infotainment system. And they're currently developing a WebEx app capable of running natively on the HTML5 centric OS. So basically, running your infotainment system, Sync 4A, having WebEx run in there so you can do video conferencing. Right? I assume it wouldn't be functional while you're driving, although I would, if it was me, I would be hacking that so you could. So we can WebEx just like we FaceTime. Not that we do that while we're driving. No, never. So yeah. So, Will, is this what you've been waiting for?
Oh yeah.
Now you're going to get an EVs if you can video conference in it, because you got all that battery power to try to keep your devices charged.
Well, somebody I know actually had a team conference call, and they realized that once in a while the filter was cutting out, and they could see the person's car behind them. So they were on their phone on Zoom while they were in the car.
I've done it. It's just our commitment to the clients. Ultimately, we're doing this wherever, as we pick up our nieces and nephews from karate lessons, maybe tomorrow.
Well, this explains something, though. It explains why the Ford F-150 Lightning comes with a bright green interior. That's helpful.
Oh, I see what you did.
Oh, there you go.
But so here's the thing: have you done a Zoom call while you're driving? Not a video Zoom call, but have you done a Zoom call while you're driving?
No.
You got your phone.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Oh.
Okay, Mr. Ingress.
Oh man.
I've got my phone in a magnetic cradle, right? And so when you're Zoom, and it knows that you're connected to a vehicle, it gives you the big, button tap to talk, so you can basically put your finger on it while you're talking. It's a hard target to miss, and so you can do that. But it's still kind of a pain in the ass. I can see this here, this could actually work really well because I've got mute controls on my steering wheel, keeping my eyes on the road, being able to just intuitively have a physical control that you can now touch. That's I know I'm unmuted, I can talk, I can take my thumb off it, I'm muted. I could see how that would tie in nicely. The downside, it's with WebEx, so I'd never have anyone to call me.
Wah, wah. Gotta love those strategic partnerships. Block out the competition.
Yikes.
All right, let's get to our picks so we can wrap up and let some people get their Clinique sponsored beauty sleep.
Yeah.
So I think a potential symptom of post-COVID fun is not being able to say words properly. Beauty sleep. Beauty sleep is something entirely different.
All right.
But also important.
Gonna have to change sheets. All right, so let's start with William Silver. What is your pick of the week? I think I like it.
So I finally got my PS5. Barely been able to play with it, so very happy about it. We actually got it late last night, and my wife was unpacking it today while I was working. She just texted me, "It's huge." It's bigger than we thought it was going to be. So where we were going to put it didn't exactly work out. So we have to redo our TV arrangement and various cable boxes, so to give it enough room. But we're super happy with it so far, and it took a while. We didn't try to get one right away, just because often I like to wait, especially after the Xbox 360 with all the issues that had. I don't buy many systems.
Red Ring of Death and all.
Red Ring of Death. I don't buy too many systems right at launch, and then this seemed to be a bad idea with this one, since if you didn't get it right at launch, you waited a year and a half. So fooling
Thanks,
one,
global
shame
supply
on
chain.
Yeah. So thank you, COVID. Anyways, I'm super happy to have one. I know a few of us have them now. They seem to be getting into the hands of the peoples. So that's good.
Did you get the digital edition or the one with the 4K Blu-ray player?
4K Blu-ray player.
Yeah. That
and that's why I skipped the PS4, because it had a Blu-ray thing for games, but not a Blu-ray player, because Sony decided to cheap out on that. But of course, now I'm learning, because I didn't do the PS4 thing and I didn't convert my SingStar games to PS4, I cannot access my SingStar games in the PS5.
We can fix that. Yeah, we can fix that. I still have
we'll offline that, because that's...
I got you. I have so got you.
Must control fist of death.
Yep, I got you.
So one of these kids is doing their own thing, Tasia, and does not have a PS5 yet, correct?
No,
Do you have it on order yet? Come on.
no, not a gamer. Sorry.
Am I game? Well, actually,
Yes.
interesting. So we got a couple
Yes, you
weeks ago
are. You
No.
own gaming consoles and you play games.
for Blu-rays and some casual games. I have literally been playing
Six stars a
games-
lifestyle more than anything else.
Exactly.
This man's in Egypt in denial.
I've been playing the same 2 games on the PS3 since 2007.
That makes you a
And now-
hardcore gamer.
Exactly. Yeah. So Monsters and Plants vs Zombies are my
Tristan,
Destiny 2.
Tristan, I'm like that territory in the north. I'm having none of it. You're a gamer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like one more, Will. Round it out.
I'll
So
try to
great.
come up with another one.
So unbeknownst to me is that Will had been communicating behind my back with my dear wife Stephanie, coordinating the purchases of PS5s. And Stephanie surprised me. I think it was for Valentine's or just after Valentine's Day with PS5, and had told me that Will and Naomi were getting one as well. So now the three of the cool kids here can be PS5 buddies, and we will just peer pressure the one who's also living in a different country. Wow, the differences are really adding up. I think maybe we should be on separate social networks. Anyhow, Tasia,
Yes.
what's your pick of the week?
My pick is Upload because the new season just finally came out on Amazon Prime. So I haven't actually started the second season yet, but we love this show. It's so good. So I don't know if you guys have seen it yet or if you're familiar with it, but
in a nutshell, why don't you tell us the other two, the premise of it? Stephanie and I have been enjoying that on Prime Video as well, and are looking forward to season 2. Why don't you tell them what it's about?
so basically you can have after you die, you can have your consciousness uploaded.
So it's a documentary.
Yes. Basically it's like a digital afterlife.
Oh,
is the
but the
easiest
caveat
way I
being this
could
was
explain it.
developed by Theranos, so you know, your
It
mileage
doesn't
may vary.
actually work. Yeah. And so it basically takes a theory of like, you can have your crappy homes, your media homes, your luxurious old folks homes, like in real life, except this is just for your digital consciousness after life. And you can pay different tiers to like be in these really luxurious places, and like because it's all of this consciousness thing, your whole reality and your whole realm can be whatever, body, or like you could change the seasons outside of your window if you wanted, and you know what I mean? So like any kind of trippy thing like that. But it's a really interesting show in terms of like this type of technology, and also it's just kind of funny. It's like a satire show. So it makes you think, but it's funny, but also there's a bit of like suspense in there, like, because this is a futuristic world to begin with, obviously. So like how this main character even died becomes like a thread throughout the show. It's a mystery we're trying to solve, and there's people that work, I would call them, in like what we would consider like a call center, but it's like they work at these centers and like they communicate with your consciousness like in that afterlife type thing.
Customer service representatives.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's pretty cool to see how they cross it over and stuff like that, from the real world to this digital afterlife. It's pretty good.
And special bonus feature is, do you know where it's shot?
Vancouver.
Yes, indeed. So you can be a point of interest. Good guess. Leading question there. So a little bit of point of interest spotting. So yes, indeed, it was at least season 1. I'm not sure about season 2, but season 1 was indeed shot in the Vancouver, BC area. So anyone who likes vaguely techie things and comedy, look, it's reasonably funny, but it's just interesting concept. And it's Greg
And he's
Daniels.
Canadian.
And Greg Daniels was involved in also was in like Parks and Rec and maybe the American Office too, others. So yeah, good choice. Upload season 2.
Yeah, I can't
Great.
wait to watch it.
Yay, me too. Great. What's your pick of the week?
Destiny 2: The Witch Queen. I've just been devouring this. This has been out for a couple weeks now. The raid has just come out, so it's a 6-person activity where you're solving puzzles and fighting bosses. This game's been around for about 8 years, really, if you count Destiny 1. And so it's become a really key part of my life. I used to say that I play video games. Now I say I play Destiny. And it is free to play to start, so both you and Will could join me in Destiny 2. It's to the point where actually I've got 2 tattoos here, if you can see them. But there's there. That's my hunter symbol. There's my ghost, which is the character from the game in white. So I've always got my support by my side there, which is pretty cool. But
Let's just hope that Bungie doesn't get Activision Blizzard on you, and then you have second thoughts about that.
they're no longer with Activision Blizzard, right? They went independent, and now they're
and then they
actually
got
a
bought
subsidiary
by.
of Sony.
I just meant from a corporate leadership point of view.
What do you want? Your pound of flesh? Because you're literally going to have to.
Cut it out of you. So you're going full John Siracusa with your Destiny 2.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's been really great. Watching the game evolve over the last 8 years has been really cool. Famously, like a year before the game came out, they had this massive lore, and they didn't really like where the story was going, so they scrapped most of the story. So when Destiny launched, it had really great gameplay, but it felt very confusing because a lot of the game's story was done through grimoire cards, which you would collect in game but read offline in the app. I now have 4 encyclopedia tomes, multiple pieces of actual clothing that have stuff on them. The game has an ARG going most of the time, so there's some really cool things here. And the best thing is just like the community people that I've found. During the raid, I've got folks here locally, part of the Semper DJ community that I play with, and got them in, last year, and we're getting them raid ready. But in the meantime, I went to play with some other folks just in a looking for group, and you're playing with college kids in the U.S., playing with professors in Germany. Like it's a really neat thing to go and play this game that is mostly cooperative. With friends, so it's been a good one. I've really enjoyed it, and so I'd recommend you give it a shot.
Awesome. I see Tasia there hurriedly trying to order a PS5 now.
Yes.
She can get on the case. I have to say, one of the nice things about the PS5 in our camp is my wife Stephanie has gotten interested in Monsters again, because Monsters 2 is on the PS5. It was originally on the PS4, and it's all 3D and fancy now. And
Wow.
we've let's say fancy tower defense game, and we've been upgrading our towers and saving our chibis together.
Excellent.
So very quickly, my pick of the week is season 6, I believe, of Outlander, which is based on the series of books by Diana Gabaldon. Oh boy! So it's on in Canada. It is on the W Network, and it follows a time traveling woman from who's a nurse in the 40s, back into the past, back into the future, back into the past again, and now she and her love and her growing family are in just pre-revolutionary America, like just before the revolution. He's like, you see all these things coming together, and it's really interesting to see these events taking place in the historical context. In previous seasons, they were in Scotland among various events that happened there, such as the Battle of Culloden. So anyone who's a fan of historical fiction, Diana Gabaldon, like I said, has been writing. I guess this is based on the 6th book in these series. I think there's about 1 book per season, and there's lots and lots of detail in the books. My wife Stephanie has read them all. She was an early adopter back in the 90s of those books, but they are meticulously researched. There's lots of sciencey kind of stuff in there, a lot of medicine, and a little bit of time travel and some hanky panky. So who doesn't love that, right?
I did hear a theory that this actually is the whole structure of the time travel is actually just following the movies of Mel Gibson. So currently, you're just about to watch the season that coincides with The Patriot.
Freedom! Anyway.
That's Braveheart, but okay.
Same themes, right?
Yeah.
All right. So picks of the week. Now we're on to a couple little projects. Will, you got some fresh beats for us?
Fresh beats. So I just completed a project with another friend of mine from the Scratch turntable beat looping community. So his name is Artwork, WERK. And he's in Montreal, and we struck up a friendship a while back, and so we decided to do some beats together. He is super talented, and I really enjoyed this one. And he was joking with me just last night that for it's called "Make 'Em Say Ah," and then for the second one, it's going to be a mountain lion. For the third one, it's going to be a tiger. For the fourth one, it's going to be an ocelot. And we'll just go from there.
Well, spoiler alert.
in California.
So is this or is it
Ah!
So now this collaboration is a little different than some of your previous ones, whereby you and other contributors were contributing individual tracks to like these collections. So how is this one different? Because it seems like you're all involved on all of the tracks.
Well, actually, this one we mostly just did individual tracks,
Okay.
but he helped with the mastering on a few of the tracks as well.
Okay.
So yeah, for the most part, these are independent, but it's more of a two-way collaboration. We talked a little bit about him doing some of the slower beats, and me doing some of the faster beats. So that's sort of how we worked it.
Yeah, I was checking them out while putting some of the stories together for today, and it's amazing with these beats. Like you don't really know how long they are, like before they loop, but it's like you can just get in. I think I mentioned this before. You can just kind of get into the zone while you're working. It's like I've been literally listening to the same like 8 bars or 16 bars or whatever for the last 10 minutes.
Exactly.
So it's some good, mostly down tempo in this set, but definitely worth checking out. And so we can find that at tableless.net and Table Beats.
Yes, tableless.net should be up tomorrow or the next day, but Table Beats is up now. The Table Beats app.
Yeah, so you can in the hit the library button in the Table Beats app, search for the username Molotov, and you can find the latest collab here with Artwerk. All right.
Artwerk.
Tasia, you have a little project for us, another video for us this week.
As always, it's the best Gmail features. I'm just sharing some of my faves. So I won't give too many away, but you know, the good old undo send is a favorite, as is the translating of the emails, and there's a lot more. I'm not going to give them all away. And also, I wore my Taylor Swift shirt in the video.
Nice.
And it's a real vibe. So you should watch it.
And you had teased that online, too, hadn't you?
Undo send, otherwise known as I accidentally sent a message to my wife to my boss.
Exactly why it was made. It's exactly why. Hey, you up? I mean, oh no.
So Tasia, where can people find this and your other work?
YouTube.com/Tasia Custodi. Or you can just go to TasiaCustodi.com. It's all there.
Right. Looking forward to it. And your next video next week, we will have a brand new old momentous video from September, finally finished editing and live next week. But rather than releasing it like yesterday or today and having the two videos very close to each other, we're going for some optimized scheduling, and it's coming out, I think, Thursday morning-ish. We're going to see if that helps at all. And then we've got another batch of editing to get into, right, Will?
Yes. I got some time Friday.
Nice. Pull you away from that infernal beat making.
Beats. All up.
So if you want to learn more about Momentous, join us at momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous.tv, twitter.com/momentous.tv, instagram.com/momentous.tv. How fast can I say all this? On YouTube, search my name and look for the Momentous playlists there. Thank you, Tasia Custodi, Gray Williams, and William Silvers. Oh, you're back. All right.
Sorry, my cat's here.
Oh, sorry, we were just thanking the back of your head. That was fun. And to the three of you and all of you out there, we hope your week is what? It's truly
momentous.
Momentous.
Wow.